In case you missed it, your host Kayla Blakesley is at it again. What did she say this time? Tune in to find out right now.
Fort Wayne is getting awfully close to making a decision on the future of flock cameras. In fact, that decision coming down the pipeline on Tuesday, August 25th, like this coming Tuesday. And I think we've reached the point where both sides, right, need to answer some really difficult questions because, I also want to establish this right out of the gate. I think this is really important. I'm going to say it directly to the guests that I have here in studio. You can strongly support law enforcement, as I do, and still have some concerns about surveillance. So what will land, putting that out there as my disclaimer. Those two positions are not mutually exclusive. But police say, flock helps them find stolen cars, locate suspects, essentially solve crimes faster. But opponents, look at this nationwide network capable of when and where vehicles are spotted and say, hold on, wait a minute. If I'm not suspected of a crime, why is information about my movements being collected in the first place? So rather than, asking Fort Wayne Police or even the FOP to simply tell us why flock is so great, I want to give them some of the questions I keep hearing from WOWO land in terms of individuals who maybe aren't big fans of the flock cameras. So with that, joining me in studio is my man, Mitch McKinney, Vice President of the Indiana State Fraternal Order of Police and a retired department sergeant from the Fort Wayne Police Department. I believe it was, over 25 years on the force that you served, Mitch?
26 and a half. Thanks for having me, KP.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. And I already braced you that you're getting the hardest flock questions that I have had thus far. They're going to you because I know you, Mitch, and I know you can take it, right?
Absolutely.
First and foremost, I actually want to start just kind of really simple and get the overall stance of the FOP when it comes to flock.
When it comes to LPRs, it's an investigative tool. And the restriction and guardrails that need to be put up is what we are about. It's a tool that the officers are utilizing, and I put the focus back locally. I see everything that folks are saying nationally, but what I don't see folks saying, especially here in Allen County, is what the Allen County Police, Fort Wayne Police, Indiana State, Post 22 folks are doing in a bad way here. And I understand the reach of the company. Here, as the Indiana State Fraternal Order Police, we want legislation built that, number one, it protects our officers. If you decide that you want to use this investigative tool in a negative way, then that should be a criminal penalty for law enforcement. We don't want bad cops here. You don't want bad cops anywhere. So Indiana legislation needs to be top on that. But we need to secure investigative tools that work for these officers. Or we go back to policing, back to at least like 1980, without that type of investigative tool, because that's what it is.
Okay, I have so many questions, and I want to talk about the legislation piece here in just a moment. But first and foremost, you were talking about these restrictions and guardrails need to be put up, as in we don't have them necessarily in place yet. And what kind of restrictions and guardrails are you talking about?
So we have them in place as far as policy goes, but I'm talking about Indiana legislation, put them into law.
Yeah.
So there are guardrails. There are ways that they are audited. Our officers are audited when they're using that system. The system isn't monitored 24/7. People have this mindset, and I've heard it over and over again, like someone is sitting there watching for a certain vehicle all the time. It's not true. Information comes from the community. And when it's a lead that needs to be followed, our investigators follow that lead as far as they need to, and when it goes cold, it's cold, they're done with it. That's the local aspect of what the technology does. Outside of that, what this data farming and everything that's happening, we can't control that. But I will tell you this, the tool is very necessary here. And the one thing for me that I appreciate is Michael from Wells County, Tyler from Americans for Prosperity, Russ Yale. I'm hearing great things from them and the concerns they're bringing, even with Micah Beckwith. I love those concerns. But here locally, our officers are doing what they're supposed to do with that technology, using it for the limitations there are, and they are doing great things with it.
Well, then let me ask you this. Let's pretend and assume every single police officer within Allen County, within Fort Wayne, uses flock perfectly, right? Why should that, though, at the end of the day, make listeners comfortable with this nationwide network? Because Fort Wayne, or even our state, if there is some legislation put into place with consequences, right, we don't control every other agency across the network. So why should I still be comfortable with the surveillance system, if you will?
Again, I would tell you that people will broad brush it as a surveillance system. I'm going to tell you to bring your focus to the investigative tool that it is. Information is put into the system, and then when they utilize that information, they go and see what they can find. And if they don't find the person, they're eliminating people as well. They're eliminating folks out there that this isn't what we're looking for. And then the lead goes cold, and they move back and start getting the pen and paper and start beating the street again to find information. What I see from when I've left the police department and from when I left from being community relations director is that's what we're missing. Is communication between the department and the community. Because if the community gives information out as fast as they do on nosy neighbors.
Tell me about it, man.
And give it to the police department and let us put your information on pen and paper and we can go find folks. Or if folks who know about the crime would give information to law enforcement right away, instead of being a divisive nation that we've become over simple topics. I tell you, folks, that we need to pull back together. We need to talk to one another, and we need to make sure that we're giving information that we can to law enforcement.
Let's talk about, one of the other arguments, and I'm sure you've heard it. I'm sure you've heard it from the FOP, so I'd kind of like to get your stance on this, too. The abuse cases, if you will. I mean, we just had, I think it was the Washington Post reporting 50 police officers who used the flock systems improperly, whether it was stalking women, stalking exes, so on and so forth. Does that kind of prove some of the concerns that critics might have against flock?
And again, it proves why legislation is needed, because I would stop the courts and put those officers up in front of the courts faster and get them locked up. No one hates a bad cop more than a good cop, and I'm a darn good one.
Yes, you are.
And I would tell you this is that because that's my badge. No matter where you work in this United States, that's my badge. And even though I'm retired, I still am proud of my badge. And if you go out and you do the job and you do the job well, anybody who doesn't do it well, and if you notice, all the things you see on media, most of the pictures that you see are mug shots.
Yeah.
So good cops caught bad cops, put them in jail. And you know what? Hate to say it, they probably did it by LPR.
I say they probably used flock to get them.
Right.
You mentioned data farming, that you can't necessarily control all the data farming. Explain that to me.
So that's what people are complaining about with the company, and doing the research. You can see the things they're doing, and you actually see the company backtracking and trying to fix some things. We're not having to fix things here. It's an investigative tool that's triggered once information is given from the community that may help us find a suspect.
So let's talk then about and pivot a little bit to this legislation that you mentioned. You said you're having conversations, by the sounds, with everything on a city level all the way up to a state level. Those conversations, are they actively happening right now?
With the executive board, the president and myself, with the lobbyists, and then we'll pull in Indiana Associations of Chiefs of Police because they're for it. Mayors are going to have to weigh in on it as well. But it's just something that needs to happen right now. Hoosiers need to have legislation in place and know that there's guardrails. And like any legislation, if it's not strict enough, if things aren't working well, we stay at the table. But shaming language and blaming people and all that, we're not making any traction on this on either side of this. But coming together, putting information down on paper, looking at how we want this to work is what's going to make this work for our community. I just don't want to see a positive investigative tool go away off of national fear that's been brought here. I want people to realize and look back at our officers and say, they have one of the highest clearance rates of homicides in the United States of America because they know how to do their job, they do it well, and I'll tell you, if this goes away, they're still going to work hard, but remember how long it took to solve April Tinsley's case. That's what you're looking for. That's what's going to happen. And it's going to take a long time, they're going to be weighed down, and they're not going to have the ability to go forward and take care of cases the way they're taking care of them now.
Mitch, I'm sure this will not surprise you. Our text line is blowing up right now, and I want to ask you a question that just came in from a listener. Are you cool with that? You got to love live radio. I told you these weren't going to be softballs this morning.
Maybe someday we'll do a forum about it, and we can sit and really have
that would be fun. We could do that.
Some conversations and write some things down, but go ahead.
But basically, this listener says, KB, can you ask Mitch regarding flock? I might trust Fort Wayne police officers now and today, but what if I don't trust the officers down the road?
So I would have to take that at context, mean down the road, meaning that something came up from the system that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Let's say something comes up from the system that comes through there, that's got to come back to us, and then we take it through the process of courts. If it's something that was illegal, if we get this legislation passed, then we take it through a court process. We don't want bad cops. We don't want bad things to happen. But having it in legislation takes it out of the hands of internal affairs where it gets handled in-house. It gets handled by the courts. And that's important to keep everybody in line and to keep an investigative tool in place.
Man, I'm up against the clock. I hate this, but I do want to ask, you're talking about...
Guess I'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, right. You might have to stay, hang out. You're talking about, this legislation. We need it right now. Is there any kind of realistic timeline on it?
Well, the realistic timeline is for us to get our hustle on with the lobbyists, put things together, talk to our attorneys, talk to our state house reps, talk to our state senators and say, is this something you're willing to pick up and author right now?
Well, then on that note, do you feel like it's in the best interest of cities, and I'm not even saying just Fort Wayne, because this isn't exclusive to Fort Wayne, right? We got cities all over the country right now, but let's just say specifically to Indiana.
Absolutely.
Do you think this legislation needs to be passed first before any cities advance on flock?
I don't. I think that cities like what Rush Yale is bringing forward right now, I just think that LPRs, if you put that into your city ordinances and you have it listed there in your ordinances, I think it's important to protect your city and be more restrictive in your city. I think that's fine. But also know that if state law comes in, you can't conflict with state law. You may have to change up the ordinance. But I believe the first step is to do what you can do. But I would ask anybody who's in the city of Fort Wayne to know, go to the meeting on Tuesday next week. Go with an open mind. Let's all calm down. I think it's one of those things where we're better than what we're seeing. And I appreciate everybody coming forward with their First Amendment rights. But I also want everybody to appreciate what a great homicide team and network we have in Fort Wayne, Allen County, and the state.
Well, you need to keep me updated on if there's any movement with that legislation, if, when, how, any of those conversations, because I know not only am I interested, but I'm sure listeners are as well.
Absolutely.
I can't believe we just went that long. I don't know what my producer's going to do with the clock at this point, but joining me in studio. No, it's my bad. That's Mitch McKinney. This is important. Vice President of the Indiana State Fraternal Order of Police and retired officer from the force as a sergeant, right? Sergeant.
Yes, ma'am. Detective Sergeant.
Detective Sergeant. Over 25 years on the force. Joining us in studio. Mitch, I'm going to have to probably have you back.
Sounds good.
Well, news time at 7:55. Good luck to my producer. Fort Wayne's Morning News continues straight ahead here on Whoa Whoa. Hey, it's KB. As a show of appreciation for listening, use my promo code WOWO for deep discounts on all kinds of products at mypillow.com. That's promo code WOWO.
Podcasts by Federated Media.